Hello, my name is Nate Holsey, and I'm here today to speak about the significance of my Chevy K10 pickup truck in America's history, as well as the importance of Chevrolet as a whole. The Chevrolet K10 is a classic staple of American trucks. The first generation of K10 trucks started in 1960, going all the way through 1966 on the same design. In 1967, the second generation of trucks rolled out of factories. These new trucks were more modern and had new advancements as well as an all-new look. Their marketing slogan for these trucks was, "Own a truck that doesn't look like a truck." Chevy paved the way for many other companies to produce trucks that had a modern look. Chevy created the first modern truck that was less choppy around the edges and more smooth and sleek. Chevy had an idea that not all people want a truck for hauling or work. Some people just want a truck for the look to say they own a truck. So Chevy went ahead and created multiple models of each truck with a 6-cylinder small block and all the way up to a big block V8. This was significant because it allowed people to get a cheaper option of truck without the unnecessary power. Chevy didn't go crazy on prices either because they understood who were purchasing these trucks and what for. Without inflation, a 1967 to 1972 Chevy K10 cost about $2,000, with the average household income at around $7,500. So it did put a significant damper on a person's income, but with the quality these trucks were being made at, they wouldn't break down easy or have many problems, except average maintenance. Mine has 280,000 miles on it and is 51 years old and is still running strong. In 1973, Chevy made a huge leap forward in heavy-duty truck by making the first ever crew cab dually. This is significant because it allowed people to own a large truck for work, but also be allowed to have an entire family in it. In 1955, Chevy came out with their first overhead valve V8 in their Task Force generation of trucks, which is just the K10 but a few generations earlier, so it had a different name. Ford came out with their overhead valve V8 in 1954, but Chevy's version packed much more power and was slightly more efficient. Chevy eventually ended up outselling all other car manufacturers during this time. The extremely popular second generation of K10 was dubbed the Action Line trucks, but people refer to them now as glamour trucks. This design received many new advancements, including an exterior redesign and much better suspension. The new trucks were lowered quite a bit to add easy access to the bed. These new trucks received double-walled panels with rust-resistant steel sheets. They also received an independent coil spring trailing arm for the front suspension. The front drum brakes were ditched for disc brakes, a first for the K10 series, as well as a new option for a radio in the cab which had not been seen in Chevy truck before this point. In 1971, the Cheyenne trim package became available, and there was a total of 8 engine options for the second generation of K10 trucks. Chevy then revolutionized the game by inventing an Insta-Track technology that allowed you to switch in and out of four-wheel drive at any speed. This changed the game of off-roading and just being safe in four-wheel drive. In 1988, Chevy demonstrated their unbelievably reliable motors by driving at 103 miles an hour for 24 hours straight. Chevy's significance goes farther than the Chevelle and C10. In 2010, 1 in every 1,615 people owned a Chevy vehicle. That means 4,662,538 people bought a Chevy that year. That is a very large number that shows a huge liking of the brand. Chevy also modernized the convertible car, creating a cool factor for people who own one. Many movies have shown the cool people with convertibles, so Chevy basically influenced pop culture. The rounded line of trucks came out between 1973 and 1987. These trucks were nicknamed the box body or the square body. They were not first out of the vehicle companies to come out with a square body truck, but they were the first to make many advancements on the square body design. They took the third generation Chevy C10 and added rubber control arm bushings, providing the truck with a smoother, more comfortable ride. For the rear, the truck featured leaf springs rather than coil springs, and drum brakes for the rear. Chevrolet is an almost all-American brand to this day. Chevy helped forge the modern car that quite literally everyone relies on to live. We've based our society on automobiles, and Chevrolet was a massive motivator in that. To think that modern life relies on vehicles, and Chevy and General Motors helped to mold that is amazing. In 1974, full-time four-wheel drive was now standard on all V8 models. Aluminum tailgate panels was added to the center of the tailgate.
Hello, my name is Billy Swisher, and I am here today to speak about one of my precious belongings, my grandfather's 1969 SS Supersport Chevelle, and its significance to U.S. history, but not only the car's significance, the entire brand of Chevrolet. Like, even though the 1969 Chevelle Supersport 396 was a muscle car for the common man, set up the new right way. Its performance was distinctly uncommon that would spark the new generation of mechanics and racers alike. After a year as a separate model, the Supersport 396 was made a $348 option package for $69. As a matter of fact, General Motors is one of the only car companies that still make most of their cars in America. This is a clear representation of their intention to boost the economy and be an American-made company. A large sum of their cars are made in South Carolina. General Motors, or Chevy, were one of the first brands of cars to convert their cars and trucks for better emissions. This has been shown when they converted the heavy-body steel and gas guzzlers to their new aluminum bodies and new EcoBoost technologically advanced engines. They also completely redesigned the body to be more aerodynamic and to be more gas efficient for our great country, the United States of America. Another way General Motors helped America while we were in World War II, they gave most of their steel to the Army for the war effort for tanks and whatnot. Now I am going to talk about the men who created Chevy and some of the facts about my 69 Supersport Chevelle. If you are confused as to why people refer to the Chevelles as Malibus as the same car, it is because Malibu was trim level to the Chevelle. From 1964 and 1977, the Malibu wasn't a separate model until 1978. One of the most expensive Chevelles ever sold at auction was in 2013, a 1970s Chevelle Supersport 427 LS6 sold for $1.15 million. Surprisingly, the Chevelle shared a platform with both the Monte Carlo and the El Camino. The Chevelle was built in 10 different plants in 2 countries during this 10-year run. But 9 out of 10 of those plants were in America. They did this to try to help the economy and boost economics. In 1969, a brand new Supersport Chevelle 396 costed around $2,743, which is pretty crazy compared to now, which, depending on the condition, it is worth over $60,000. The Chevelle is quite the movie star, appearing in over 1,600 shows and movies. It had starring roles as recently as the Fast and Furious franchise. 1964 was the only year U.S.-built Chevelles had the model listed as the first digit in the VIN. It only took about 1 year for Chevy to redesign the Chevelle after its debut year. The 1965 Chevelle was notably different than the debut model. The Chevelle was the intended successor of the Tri-5, but ended up carving out its own place in Chevy history, and that's not an easy thing to do. There was a version of the Chevelle only available in Canada that had slightly different grille and trim. It was called the Acadian Beaumont. Louis Chevrolet and William C. Durant were the men who created General Motors and Chevy on November 3, 1911, and since then, the company has manufactured over 200 million trucks and cars since. These men were very pro-America because they always wanted to keep their company in America to help keep jobs here for American citizens. This was significant to American history because they hired thousands of people in their plants to make their cars and trucks. They helped boost the economy when they started and kept their plants going for all this time. Now it's time for some facts about the Chevy line. The Chevrolet V8 engine was first launched in 1955 and has been produced ever since. The current day models are updated versions of the original engine. Also, 1913 was the first year in which the famous bow-tie Chevy emblem was first used. One of the oldest stories states that Durant picked up the idea from a wallpaper design that he had seen in France. Some others claim that it is styled Swiss cross. This history of the Chevrolet proves that a company can reach a great success. These are just some of the most important and most significant facts from the Chevy line and the Chevy company. 1973 was the first year Chevy came out with the truck, the K10. It was the first year for the new truck displayed at a completely new look for the previous 6 years. The most notable changes were to the body. The new trucks featured a completely restyled, rounded body style, curved side glasses, bigger, more comfortable seats, and flow-through ventilation directed through louvers behind the hood. Wood grain trim panel on the tailgate of top trim levels, also introduced in 1973, was a crew cab 1-ton 3+3 pickup nicknamed the Big Dually. 454 replaces 400 as top engine option. 1,055,273 units were produced, surpassing the 1972 Ford sales record.
1986 was the last year Chevrolet truck engines were equipped with carburetors and they switched to fuel injection. In 1986, the Chevy K10 was also dubbed the official truck of the Indy 500 alongside the Corvette pace car. In 1987, Chevy changes the name designation on the K10 pickups. The previous 4x2 C series is changed to the R series, and the 4x4 K series is changed to the V series. Chevrolet also introduced TBI-equipped engines. The end of the 15-year run for the rounded line K10 pickups, however, the rounded line body style remained until 1991 on Blazers, Suburbans, and 1-ton trucks. 1986 was the year the most powerful base engine came out for the Chevy trucks, the Vortex V6 with fuel injection. The last year for the Chevy C10 was in 1987, as the 1988 through 1998 fourth generation Chevy K10 trucks took on a new naming structure with the 1500, 2500, and 3500. For 1972 and 1973, the same trucks were offered, except the Longhorn Edition, the Cheyenne, and the Cheyenne Super, as well as the Custom and Custom Deluxe, were the available trim levels. The Chevy C10 with a 6.5-foot bed was dubbed the Fleetwood. For 1975, those trim levels were revised and the Silverado Luxury trim became available. In 1978, Chevy offered a 5.7-liter V8 diesel engine only for the Chevy C10. More changes occurred in 1984 when the Chevy trucks sported a new 2-level grille. New features also included interior door panels constructed from galvanized steel, non-asbestos rear brake linings, and semi-metallic front brake linings for the Chevy K10 and K20. A year later, in 1985, the Chevrolet pickups received another redesign for the front end and had a sportier appearance. A 1966 Chevy C10 Fleetside would have cost about $2,066, according to an automobile magazine. Accounting for inflation, that would be equivalent to about $16,025 for the original price. Depending on the condition of the truck, a Chevy C10 can be valued anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000. For harder to find models in mint condition, that price point can obviously go a lot higher. However, for true Chevrolet enthusiasts, restoring a Chevy C10 back to its former glory is priceless.
This has been Billy Swisher and Nate Holsey, End of the Year Classroom Historians Project, on my 1969 Super Sport Chevelle.
And my 1968 Chevy K10.
Thank you for listening, and thank you for your time.